Hey, what's up? This is Dr. Taylor Krick, host of the Autoimmune Doc podcast, and here's another review of literature. On this YouTube channel, I review studies from the biomedical literature, from the scientific literature, just related to things that we talk about on the podcast, things that are important. Today's is about mycotoxins. This is a great study. It's a great paper. It's pretty straightforward, really. They're not really investigating anything. They're just kind of looking at, where are mycotoxins found and how do we measure them. So it's really, really good. So mycotoxins are mold toxins. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, look back at some of the past videos. I've been doing some videos about mycotoxins and how they're neurotoxic, how they damage and affect the brain, where they're found from. We see a lot of mold issues in our office, and this paper is really, really good. Mycotoxins are not always, or mold toxins are not always in your attic or your crawl space or your basement or your water pipe bursting or things like that. So this paper is illustrating a lot of the food sources. I think it's really, really important to be aware of the food sources, especially, we see mycotoxins in kids causing different things that were known to be effects of mycotoxins, but dopamine disruption, OCD, ADHD, etc. But a lot of these foods are kids' foods, fruit juices, cereals. So let's just jump into it. So this is from 2021. They're out of Croatia, and the journal's Toxins. And the title is Mycotoxins, Biomonitoring and Human Exposure. It's a review paper. So, abstract, it just says mycotoxins are secondary metabolites produced by fungal species that commonly have a toxic effect on human and animal health. As you'll see in this paper, a lot of different mechanisms. They're carcinogenic, they're cause mitochondriopathies, they're endocrinopathies, they're just cause a myriad of mechanisms. And again, I got a lot of other videos explaining that. This review aims to provide a short overview of the occurrence of toxigenic fungi and the regulated mycotoxins in foods and workplaces following the current literature and data presented in scientific papers. So they just reviewed all these studies that you're going to see. It's pretty cool, this paper. So I just have some things highlighted, just some little blurbs, and then there's some charts that are really good. The most common mycotoxins included in legislation, meaning where there's actually laws where they have to be monitored because we know the health hazards are so great that they need to be monitored in the foods. The most common mycotoxins belong to several types: aflatoxins, ochratoxins, fumonisins, trichothecenes, zearalenone, patulin, and citrinin. The main food groups affected by fungal metabolites are different cereals, dried fruits, nuts, coffee, and spices. Up to 80%. So this says well-developed strategies have been made, but despite these efforts, up to 80% of food still ends up being contaminated by mycotoxins. And it has been estimated that roughly 25% of cereals worldwide are contaminated with mycotoxins. That's heavy and that's crazy and that's really serious. Even if you're eating your gluten-free cereal or something and it's rice-based, let's say, rice is a big source of aflatoxin and mycotoxins, so it can come from other places. Sometimes even if you're making what you consider a smarter decision, gluten-free cereals, still heavy in mycotoxins. Destruction in the GI tract is minimal. This is why they can act in such a harmful way and affect human and animal health. Their pronounced influence on the global economy is also tremendously important, because if they get into feed and they get into agriculture, then there's loss of yield and there's just a tremendous impact economically, not only on the healthcare system and the health symptoms that come from it, but also in the agriculture and field world too, which might drive more of the literature behind it because there's more profit to be made from that side, as opposed to the pharmaceutical, medical, insurance-based side. There's not a ton of profit to be made to say that, hey, the molds are causing all these health issues. So blah 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 blah. I don't know why I didn't highlight this, but the toxicologic effects of different mycotoxins are reported in many in vivo studies. Description of mycotoxicoses, such as GI problems, genotoxicity, estrogenicity, and even death, can be found in numerous scientific reports. So now we get into these charts that just show where are the mycotoxins found. So this is what I think is interesting because, where are they coming from? So pistachios, peanuts, almonds, all find high levels of aflatoxins and ochratoxin. We're going to get to it a little bit later, but aflatoxin's highly carcinogenic. Ochratoxin is also carcinogenic, has a high affinity for the brain, is a known dopamine disruptor. Aflatoxin is a major liver disruptor. It's nephrotoxic. So again, the goal today is not to explain all these mycotoxins, but it's easy for me to get carried away with those. Cereals, you find all these in cereals. So aflatoxin, ochratoxin, DON, zearalenone, barley, wheat, I'm getting to wheat, malt, all these again. Here's wheat. Wheat's going to have your aflatoxins, your ochratoxins. It's things that are stored in bulk. And, I talked to a patient yesterday, almonds do have aflatoxins. And I said, it's things that are stored in bulk, but almonds are fairly expensive. So you drive around central Illinois here and you see these huge grain elevators. They ain't storing almonds in these huge grain elevators like that. They're just really expensive. Whereas the subsidized cheap things that are mass produced, your corn, your soybeans around here in central Illinois, your rice in other areas, those are the ones that are the most common. Coffee's another one too. Wheat flour, cereal porridge, breakfast cereals, another study. These are all citations. So these are all the journals. Hey, you can check out this journal where they prove this. Hey, you can check out this journal where they prove this. So these are all the citations. Cornflakes and corn-based foods. Rice, there's your rices again. Baby foods are a big deal. Breast milk is a really big deal. So we're going to get to some of the other charts. A lot of mycotoxins found in breast milk, so these can absolutely be passed from mother to baby. Dried milk, milk porridge, aflatoxin. So aflatoxin is a big one from food. Fruit drinks, pork meats. Now that's only one chart. It's continued. Wine has ochratoxin. Beer has ochratoxin. Based on the models above, your barley, your malt, your beer's going to have other things too. This is just when they did a beer test, more ochratoxin, DON, strigmatocystin, which comes from penicillin. Coffee has ochratoxin. Cacao has ochratoxin. Chocolate has ochratoxin, aflatoxin. Spices, and then even water, portable water, surface water, groundwater, wastewater. Water can have mycotoxins. So, from table 1, it's visible that the most common mycotoxins are DON, patulin, ochratoxin, and aflatoxin. They can be found in everyday foods that are consumed all over the world. Mycotoxins can be found in water, as confirmed by several studies. Special attention is paid towards the regulation of mycotoxins found in baby foods. Infants are susceptible to developing difficulties when in contact with these kind of contaminants. So again, some of these I only highlighted some parts of these studies. This one's interesting too about where are molds found. Indoor air is by far a bigger exposure than food, but food is also filling the bucket. So you have your apartments. You could find things, and this is not an all-inclusive list at all. Stachybotrys not even on here. Epicoccus, there's all kinds of other molds. Aspergillus, penicillium, cladosporium, chaetomium's not on here. There's all kinds of more that are found in air. Some of those that I mentioned are kind of heavier molds that might be found more on carpet, more in your stuff. There's all kinds of more molds in your indoor environment. Basements, penicillium, aspergillus, cladosporium. Again, that's not totally all-inclusive. There's many more. Library or archive, because mycotoxins can store or stick to like books and things like that. So it could be on your books, could be on your stuff, could be on your couch, could be on your sofa, could be on your old clothes. That's something that I've experienced. And it could be in your passenger vehicle, in the air conditioning unit, or in the seats. These different molds can be found. So I think that's really important to know where they could be coming from. Exposure can be related to workplaces, especially in the fields of agriculture or in the food industry, or let's say your workplace, because they're talking about food-related mycotoxins, but it could be in your workplace because there's mold there too and high mycotoxins from water damage. Then the rest of this is going through what are the different methods for detecting this, and then the next chart is about detecting them in humans. Breast milk is a great point to estimate the exposure in breastfed babies to different mycotoxins, but it's only used to monitor lactating women, obviously. But they're talking about blood markers, urine markers, serum plasma, etc., and they go through all these things. So ochratoxin, aflatoxin can be found in the serum. You can do antibodies against those. But more often they're found in the urine. So a lot of these you see urine. This is the testing method. So ELISA is a testing method. Some of these others, liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry. There can be urine ELISA too. Do we see that? Urine ELISA is the most commonly one that I use, but I do sometimes use the LCMS too. So here's just saying ochratoxin, aflatoxin, ochratoxin, zearalenone, ochratoxin, aflatoxins. There are all these studies where they're found through these different mechanisms, but they find them in high levels. There's another one, urine, just found a lot of them in these two studies, etc. Urine, more. And then testing in breast milk, they found ochratoxin, aflatoxin, M1, ochratoxin, ZON. And yeah, so we just kind of keep going. Nasal secretions, they found them. They found them in urine, blood, feces, nasal saliva. So that one, they were looking at all kinds of different fluids, and they found that these mycotoxins were in all these different fluids. Aflatoxins, so this is just a highlight of all these. Aflatoxins are one of the most well-studied mycotoxins with a metabolism that is familiar to scholars. I highlighted that because I was like, I want to send that to my parents and say, hey, your son is a scholar. 4 different aflatoxins are often detected and quantified as foodstuff contaminants. However, aflatoxin B1 is the most important, not only because of its abundance, but because of its toxicity. It is a powerful, strong, gnarly carcinogen. Ochratoxin is characterized, and they go into all the other bad stuff, so I'm going fast because we have other videos about this. Ochratoxin is characterized as nephrotoxic. It's also hepatotoxic and carcinogenic, and it has a high affinity for the brain, and it disrupts dopamine. So again, these things are all true, but there's certain things that are left out, even with other reviews that, again, I've linked to on this channel. It can be found in human blood even after 30 days, has a 30-day half-life in the blood, and an indefinite existence intracellularly. And it serves as a biomarker for ochratoxin A exposure. Zearalenone is a fusarium toxin that is an estrogen mimicker. It has estrogen mimicking properties. It affects male fertility, female fertility, sperm counts, reproductive problems, etc. Goes both phase 1 and phase 2 metabolism in the gut. And again, there's other things in here, glucuronidation, etc. Then DON are designated as the most prevalent mycotoxins in this study. DON causes GI problems, oxidative damage, inhibits DNA, RNA, protein biosynthesis. So these things jack things up on a cellular level. This one down here says that it's a suppressor of mitochondrial function. So are some of these others. Ochratoxin certainly suppressor of ATP synthesis. So are some of the other mycotoxins. That's a known mechanism for sure. So yeah, these things get in there, they jack things up. Here's trichothekines. They come from a lot of black mold. They come from some fusarium samples, like it says here, but also Stachybotrys, which is what's mostly considered black mold from true water damage. But trichothekines are really, really toxic. T2 is an inhibitor of protein synthesis and mitochondrial function, and displays immunosuppressive and cytotoxic effects, means it kills cells. Cells die. NIV is classified as a type B trichothekine. It's common in wheat, and displays immunotoxic, hemotoxic, myelotoxic, developmental, and reproductive toxic properties. Exposure has been associated with the increased incidence of these cancers in certain regions of China. Fumosinins from fusarium, even though more than 30 compounds are designated as fumonisins, the most familiar are FB1 and FB2. They're classified as carcinogens and can cause different anomalies in children. That might be all that I have highlighted, because I think that sums it up. But the point is that especially in kids, these toxins are in a lot of the foods. They're in a lot of the cereals. They're in a lot of fruit juices. They're in coffee. They're in nuts. They're in alcohol. So looking for your total mycotoxin load, if you have high mycotoxins, if you have mold exposure, if you're trying to detoxify mycotoxins, you just don't want to be adding anything to the bucket. or if your symptoms maybe aren't resolving and you haven't quite looked at your diet yet, it's different than an antifungal diet, because an antifungal diet is trying to not feed fungus, but this is a low mycotoxin diet. And sometimes people need both. Sometimes they need one or the other, but just being aware of the sources of these mycotoxins is really, really good to know.